DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to occur. And on top of all this, you get to use those of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one framework, one package, one philosophy, one mindset, one approach, one daily masterclass. We got a bunch of books on this subject, and you're listening to that daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, we're going to talk about how to use the SWOT analysis, and not SWAT as in the SWAT team like the cops, but SWOT, SWOT analysis. Now, I mentioned in a previous episode not too long ago that I was going to be talking about the SWOT analysis very soon. And anytime that I tell you that something is coming soon, everybody who's listening to me, especially those of you who are new and those of you who are old, when I tell you that something is coming soon, it means a lot sooner than what most people mean when they say soon. Most people, when they say soon, that might mean 5 months from now or 10 years from now. When I say soon, I might mean the next day. I might mean the next week. I might mean the next month. So just keep that in mind moving forward. But we're going to talk about exactly what this means today, and I'm going to explain to you how you can use it. Doesn't matter what you do for a living. A SWOT analysis will be very useful for you, especially if you have never heard of it and it's your first time hearing of it. So let's, first of all, before I go any further, let me tell you that I have a text message line where I want you to text me and tell me the most valuable insight you gleaned from today's masterclass. Whether it is a question, a comment, a concern, whether it's just a great idea, whether I told a funny joke, whatever it is, text me and tell me what that is. My text number is 305-384-6894. Once again, 305-384-6894. Now, once you text me there, not only will you be able to engage with me directly because I spend time every day replying to my texts, you also will be receiving my daily motivation text message, which I send out every single morning to everyone in my texting community. So even if you just want to get a text that keeps you sharp, mentally focused and on point and ready to go and put your game out there in the world, work on your game, sharpen your game, whatever, text me 305-384-6894. Now, this topic of the SWOT analysis, let's get a definition. This one I grabbed from Wikipedia. It says, quote, SWOT analysis is a strategic planning technique used to help a person or organization identify, here's the acronym, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats related to business competition or project planning, close quote. Now, that's the SWOT, S for strength, W for weakness, O for opportunity, T for threat, related to any type of business. And again, those of you who are new here, those of you who are not so new, remember that life is a business. All right, it costs money to be born, it costs money to die, and it costs money in between. So life is a business. So while this whole concept of the SWOT analysis comes from the business world, I think the first time I ever heard of it, I think it was some business class I was taking in college. And I did enough to get by in college. I don't remember who the teacher was or what the hell they were talking about, but I do remember first hearing of the SWOT analysis. And I held on to this because this was some rare, useful information that I got in a college course. And while it does come traditionally from business, we're going to assess it today based on the original business being your life. So even if you are not an entrepreneur or you're not one of the people who is looking at the overall strategic picture of a business in which you may be working or something like that, your life is a business and you are the CEO of that business, and you're either a bad CEO or a good one. But we're going to talk about how you can leverage this in anything that you're doing in your life, if nothing else. Let's get into it. Point number one. Topic, once again, is using the SWOT analysis. First thing is looking at your strengths. This is an easy one. This is one that many people, in my experience, usually like talking about. People like talking about their strengths. So let's ask some questions. What are you good at? Do you know? What are you actually good at? Where do you bring substance to the table? Where do you bring value to the table at a level that other people look at you and say, damn, what this person is doing here is valuable, is worth something. There's some substance here. This is something that's actually worth money. This is worth time, attention, energy, focus. Those are your 5 forms of investment, by the way, which are referenced in episode number 609. What are you better at than most people? What are some things that you do just better than most of the people around you? Whether that's most of the people around you in general or most of the people around you in your particular field. Where do you have an ethical, unfair advantage based on something like your education, your experience, your natural gifts, or your interests. Something I've said all the time here is that fair fights are for losers. You don't want a fair fight in life. All right? You do not want to be getting into fair fights. All right? Fair fights are not what you want. I talked about this in episode 1812, that you want to create unfair advantages in life. In episode 1957, I told you that you want an ethical, unfair advantage. That was episode, again, 1957, just a week ago, where I talked about that. The ethical unfair advantage is where you are just naturally better than other people, maybe not even naturally, maybe artificially better than other people, but you didn't violate any ethics or any of your personal moral codes in order to create that unfair advantage. You just have an unfair advantage. For example, if you're playing basketball and you're 6'9" and all your opponents are 5'9", you have an ethical unfair advantage. You didn't violate their ethics in order to get that advantage. You just have an advantage. It's just better for you. Where do you have that in your life? It can be based on your knowledge, your experience, maybe some natural gifts, or maybe just things that you're interested in. If you had to choose to do something, this is the next question. If you had to choose to do something right now that you know you could be successful at, and however you define success. If success means just being the best, if success means it's fun, if success means you make a lot of money from it, if success means all three, if you had to choose something that you know you would be successful at right now, I know you might be working on something else, but something you know you could be really good at, it would be fun for you, it would be easy for you, you have a natural, ethical, unfair advantage, and you can make money from it, what would that thing be, and why would that be the thing? These are things that you need to be aware of. You need to know what your strengths are. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go do them. It doesn't mean you have to drop everything you're doing right now and go to those things, but you should know what your strengths are. It is a general rule of thumb in life to play to your strengths. All right, this is what smart people do. Wise people play to their strengths, folks. Wise people do not try to fit square pegs into round holes. And unfortunately, many of us, because we spend so much of our energy and attention looking around at what everybody else does and what everybody else has and what everyone else has going on, often we fool ourselves into thinking that we need to do something that we see other people doing when those things may be strengths for them, but they're not strengths for us. And we start to think, well, maybe I should do that. Maybe I need to do that. Maybe I can get involved in that, when it's not really a strength for you. So you need to be able to look in the mirror and, well, everybody's able to do it. You need to look in the mirror and figure out where your strengths are. There is a book out there called The Strengths Finder. I have never gone through the Strengths Finder exercise, but it has been spoken of highly. So any of you go on Amazon, go look that book up. I believe it's a physical book that you would want to get, or it might be an online version of it, but it's not a normal just read the book. It's an actual course type of thing that you can take on your own. But the Strengths Finder helps you figure out, what are your natural strengths? Where do you have abilities that put you above and beyond and ahead of everybody else who is out there? And remember, people, even if you're not the competitive type of individual, understand that life is a competition. All right, you are competing with other people. You may be competing for resources, you may be competing for attention, competing for success, competing for money, competing for position. And while we do live in a world of abundance where everyone can make money, everyone can succeed in their own way, understand at the same time, we do have a limited resource called time. Meaning you don't have forever to get to the outcomes that you want to get to. So you should know your strengths, because your strengths will probably get you to your desired outcomes faster than doing anything else. So know where your strengths are. Do not be one of the unfortunate people trying to force a strength that does not actually exist for you. Do not lie to yourself in the space of where are your strengths. What are you good at? Point number 2. Today's topic again is using the SWOT analysis. Number 2, your weaknesses. Now, this is an area where, again, some people are not so keen on talking about these so much, or not so keen on even identifying them, when there are others who are kind of the opposite. They don't really like talking about their strengths, or they seem to be blind to their strengths, but they love talking about their weaknesses. Maybe you're one or the other. But when it comes to weaknesses, here are the questions you're going to ask yourself. Where are your areas for improvement? Also, where are areas where you're just not that good, and honestly, you don't even want to improve because you're just not interested? A weakness is an area where you need to improve, or area that you could improve because it would help you get to an outcome that you're trying to get to. It would help you get further along in some area that you're interested in. It is not necessarily a weakness if it's something that you just don't care about and it has no relevance, no impact on any of the success or the outcomes that you want or need to achieve. For example, before I started playing basketball, I used to play baseball. And I'm not that good at baseball. But baseball is, at the same time, even though I'm not good at it, I wouldn't even consider it a weakness or an area for improvement for me because I'm not willing to do the work. I will never play baseball again. I will not have a need in my life to get better at baseball. So even though I'm not good at it, I wouldn't call it an area for improvement because if I improve in it, what is it going to do for me? Based on the way that my life looks right now and how I'm projecting my future, I have no need for baseball skills or tennis or a whole bunch of other things. So areas for improvement are things that could actually help you do better at the thing that you care about. So for example, if you're an artist or you're a professional speaker or you're a podcaster or you want to be an influencer, the ability to sell could be an area for improvement for you, because if you improve your ability to sell, it would help you get your work as an artist or a speaker or an influencer. It would help you get that work out there into the world. So areas for improvement are things that if you improve at it, it would actually help you do better at your strengths. It would actually support. It would be a supporting cast member to help the star of the show, which are your strengths, look better. Another example is working with the human body. I remember when I started working with my trainer Maria around 2009. I met her in South Beach, and she got to just evaluate the way that I moved in my body. She identified quickly that, okay, Dre, you've worked on all the big muscles. Like you do the bench pressing and you do the leg exercises and you do the core stuff. So you have the big muscles, the beach muscles, but you haven't put any focus or any emphasis on the smaller muscles that help stabilize the big muscles, the ones that support the big muscles. I didn't even understand the concept of that, which makes it make perfect sense that I wasn't focusing on doing those things. But because she has a kinesiology degree and she studies the human body, she's a performance coach by trade, she understood the things that I didn't understand. So it made it a perfect partnership. And at the same time, she helped me work on those supporting cast muscles, if that makes sense. So those were areas for improvement for me, but I didn't even know it because I didn't have the right people around me to identify and give me the right information. So this brings us right back to that topic of people. Getting the right people around you can help you do a lot more than you will ever be able to do by yourself. And that's a little anecdote that I just gave you there is a perfect example. So sometimes the supporting muscles are what help the big muscles do their jobs. Any professional athlete understands that, or at least they're working on it. Even if they don't understand it, their trainer understands it and their trainer helps them work on it. Another example, where I'm out of that one now. When I was in college, I took Math 110. Now at Penn State University, to get a business degree, you had to pass Math 110 with at least a D for disappointing. You had to pass that one time to get your business degree. It was part of the degree, part of the audit that they would give you to get your degree. I believe it was like 122 credit hours or something like that. Math 110 was I might have been a 4-credit class. I don't even remember. I should remember because I took the class 4 times. I finally passed it with a D my final semester of college. But I don't consider calculus or Math 110 in that sense to be an area for improvement for me, because I will never take that class again. If I'm ever faced with a tough calculus problem anytime for the rest of my life, I will hire somebody who can solve it for me, somebody who did better at Math 110 than I did. Working at a company, cleaning bathrooms, these are all not areas for improvement for me. They are things that I don't plan on improving at because I don't plan on doing any of these things. I will find someone else to do these things instead of me. So areas for improvement are things that would actually support your strengths. They are not just random things that you're not good at, okay? So you need to know what these are for you so that you can, first of all, stay out of situations that you don't belong in. All right? I'm not going to join somebody's tennis team because I'm not going to help that team. I will not make that team better because I do not have skills at playing tennis. So I will stay away from areas that I'm not good at. All right? I will not join a math experts program. They probably wouldn't even let me in. I wouldn't pass the entrance exam because I'm not good at doing those things, at least not calculus. I can do addition and subtraction. I can use a calculator very well. But that higher level math, calculus and things like that, I don't understand. No, I can't even say I don't understand it. I didn't study. So actually I don't understand it because I didn't study and I didn't do the work in college. I did enough to get by. All right, I'm honest about that. So those things are things that I know that I probably should stay away from. These are areas where I will not add value to any group that I'm involved in. So that, first of all, you know to stay away from these things. And secondly, you'll know which areas you do need to work on that will actually help you do better at the thing you're already good at. For example, when I met my trainer Maria, she said we need to work on these smaller muscles that will stabilize the bigger muscles that will help you perform better. I realized, okay, that will actually help me be a better basketball player. So I'm going to pay attention to everything she tells me and do everything that she says. This is going to actually help me do the thing that I'm good at, which is playing basketball. It'll help me do that thing better. So you need to know what your weaknesses are so you know what to avoid and what you need to work on. This is what we call, everyone, strategic intelligence. Staying away from things where you don't belong and focusing on the things that you actually need to get good at. Strategic intelligence. There's a basketball player, he's retired now, named Shaquille O'Neal. Everybody knows who he is, even if you don't watch basketball. Now, Shaq, when he played, in case you never saw him play, he was about 7 feet tall, 300 some pounds, was super athletic. He could move in a way that you never saw a guy his size move. And still to this day, haven't seen anybody his size move that way. Now, Shaq, when he played, he didn't really shoot three-pointers because shooting three-pointers wasn't his best style. Shaq's strength was playing around the basket where he could use his size and athletic ability to just overpower, physically dominate his opponents. And it worked pretty well because Shaq won a whole lot of championships and he's a Hall of Fame basketball player. You must know where you belong and where you don't belong, and there's nothing wrong with admitting this. This is something that some of us, our egos, cause us to be unwilling to do this, to not be willing to admit, you know what, this is a place where I actually have strength and I need to focus here. And here's a place where I'm really not that good, so I should probably stop doing this thing. Be willing to admit these things. Only fools fashion themselves as competent at everything that they see. Only the foolish man thinks they can do everything. All right, nobody's good at everything. Most of us are good at a few things, and we're mediocre to terrible, somewhere between mediocre and terrible at everything else. The problem for many of us is that we ignore the things that we're actually good at, and we try to force ourselves to be good at things at which we are mediocre. And this is where a lot of time gets wasted, remembering that when we make a mistake, of course we can fix it, but you can't make but so many mistakes before you run out of time to keep fixing them. All right, so this is why you have to be very careful in your SWOT analysis, knowing where you're strong, knowing where you're weak. The wise man knows where to go, and the wise man also knows where to stay away from. All right, a fish is an expert in the water, but outside of the water, not so much. Point number 3. Today's topic, again, is utilizing the SWOT analysis. Number 3, your opportunities. This is the O in the SWOT analysis. Given your strengths, how, where, and when can you make the most of these strengths? Where can you produce the highest ROI? ROI stands for return on investment on your abilities. Where do you see uses for your abilities now and in the future? That's another opportunity. If you were to look at your strengths, for example, like a big pile of wood, the kind of wood that you can throw a match on that would start a fire, what are the sparks that could turn that wood into a fire? For example, if you have a great product to sell, that would be the fire, that would be the wood for the fire, right? A good advertising campaign can convert that product into revenue. So the advertising campaign is like the match that starts the fire. Just having the wood itself doesn't do anything, but you throw the right match on it, a little tiny spark can set the whole thing on fire. So when you have a great product, the ad is that spark. If you are, for example, another example, if you're a great athlete and then you find the right trainer or the right coach and that person sees you and recognizes your ability, they can turn that talent into greatness. An example of that is a guy like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was a guy who was from Brownsville, Brooklyn. He was running around in the streets, probably would have ended up incarcerated or dead had he not been discovered by some boxing trainers. Notably, this guy named Cus D'Amato, who taught Mike how to fight. And Cus D'Amato was the spark. He threw that spark on top of the firewood that was Mike Tyson's unrecognized talent for boxing, and Mike Tyson became Mike Tyson. So you got to ask yourself, where are your opportunities? Where do you already have the raw ability, or maybe even some polished ability, that with the right spark thrown on top of it, it'll set the whole thing on fire? Those are your opportunities. You need to know where your opportunities are so that you can get around those opportunities and maybe just position yourself to get lucky. Now, we talked about luck in many episodes here on this show. In episode 1743, I told you a recipe for taking advantage of luck and creating an opportunity. In episode number 1220, I told you how to manufacture luck. Episode 1154, luck does matter and here's what to do about it. And that's good luck and bad luck. In episode 854, luck strategy is to be outside often. So when you know what your opportunities are, you may know when you're outside where to go. Now, there's a lot of places to go when you go outside, right? Where do you go to take advantage of those outside opportunities? Point number 4, Today's topic, once again, is utilizing the SWOT analysis. Number 4 are the threats. Where do you need to be vigilant? Where are you in a position that maybe you could end up in a bad spot if you don't pay attention right now? Where would you attack yourself if you were your enemy? Look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, if you needed to beat you, how would you attack you? Now, you know all your strengths, you know all your weaknesses, you know everything. Where would you attack yourself? And what can you do to fortify that area so that if and when someone does attack it, you're not in as vulnerable a position as you're in right now? Mark Cuban, I believe it was in his book. I forget the name of the book that he wrote. It was a short little book that he wrote. But it's something that I heard him say as well. He said every day he would wake up as an entrepreneur and ask himself, how would I kick my own ass? If I wanted to destroy myself in business, knowing everything that I know about my business, knowing more about it than anybody else, how would I beat me? And then what can I do to close that gap? What can I do to close that hole? Michael Jordan's another person I heard talk about this. He said, whenever I recognized that there was any kind of hole or any kind of gap in my game, and Jordan would even ask reporters sometime about this. He would ask a media guy who would always, because after the games, everybody would come up to Jordan. And sometimes he would just take a reporter aside who he knew watched his game a lot and say, hey, do you see any holes in my game? Do you see any weaknesses in my game? Where can I get better? And he would take whatever those reporters told him and he would go to work on that area that was an alleged weakness, and he would close that gap before any of his actual competition, the other players in the NBA, before they noticed it. He wanted to know where his weaknesses were, where the threats were, so that he could be ready to close those gaps before anybody can make it into a gaping hole. So your weaknesses are windows into your threats. This is how those two connect. And your strengths are weaknesses into your opportunities. When you know what you're strong at, now your opportunities are related to how can I exploit this strength. When you know where you're weak, those are opportunities for your opponents. Those are opportunities for your competition, and they become threats when your competition is aware of them. If you're aware of them first, which you should be, because you know you better than anybody else does, you can close those up before they actually become threats, before anyone can do anything about them. So where would you attack you if you were your enemy? If you were your worst enemy, what would you do to destroy yourself? Where are the openings in your facade that could be attacked? Where are you, let's say, one bad day, one bad break, or one bad outcome away from danger? This is something that I've heard a lot of people talk about, a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of investors talk about from a decade plus ago when the housing market collapsed, the entire financial market collapsed. I've heard many entrepreneurs talk about, well, you know what, I put myself in a really threatened position, a very highly leveraged position back then, and then something bad happened. That bad break was not based on something that they did, but the whole market fell apart and it put them in a bad position, and they had to recover from that. And they said, okay, now that I realized that I was one bad break away from ruin, now next time I won't put myself in that situation again. I will never put myself in that position again. So sometimes in life you just need to know, and sometimes you might have to go through it. You might have to suffer a bad break before you realize, like, damn, everything could have came apart if that thing had gone just a little bit different from how it went. This is like a sports team that's heavy on superstar players. And one of those star players gets hurt, the whole team goes from great to mediocre overnight just because they were one bad break away from everything falling apart. Or if your business is based on, for example, your thriving Facebook group, and then Facebook shuts down your Facebook group for whatever reason, and there are many stories of people getting their accounts and Facebook pages and whatever social media just shut down for no reason, don't even know why, and you can't talk to anybody about it. Now you have chaos because your whole business was built on that. So where are these threats for you? Where are the areas where you are just one bad situation away from being in some serious trouble? Where are these threats, and what can you do to best fortify yourself against them? This right here, what we're talking about in point number 4, a lot of this, as I'm talking about it, it reminds me of Louis Seneca, who wrote the book on Stoicism. There's a book credited to Seneca called Letters from a Stoic. I don't believe he actually put it together and said, hey, here's a book. He wrote these letters, and the letters were compiled and then made into a book, and he's the author of all the letters. So if you haven't read that book, it's a book on Stoicism. A lot of people have written about it, but Seneca is the one who is credited as kind of like the forefather of the concept of Stoicism. And one of the things that Seneca talks about is every single day, people should meditate on their own death, meditate on your own ruin, meditate on the fact that one day you will not be around, you will turn to dust, your body will be buried, and then other stuff's gonna be buried on top of you, and there will not be any trace that you ever even existed here on this planet. And for some people, that's kind of a depressing thing to think about, but it's honest because it's a real thing. That really is going to happen to all of us. One day we will all be dust and we'll all be gone. Everything we did, nobody's going to be talking about at all. And when you're able to meditate on it, you're more at grips with the fact that it is going to come, and therefore you won't fear it as much. It's one of the concepts that Seneca talks about in his book, but I'm just paraphrasing in my words, but you should read the book yourself. Again, it's called Letters from a Stoic by Luis Seneca, Seneca. So that is the threats part of the SWOT analysis. Let's recap today's class, which is utilizing the SWOT analysis, standing for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Wikipedia says the strategic planning technique used to help a person or organization identify those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for business competition or project planning. And listen, you are in life, which is a business competition, and all of your life is a project. And hopefully you have a plan. So it makes perfect sense. Point number one. Your strengths are, what are you good at? Where are you better than most people? Where do you have an ethical, unfair advantage? Know your strengths is a general rule of thumb in life to play to your strengths. People who become highly successful are playing to the things that they are actually good at. Don't try to force yourself to be good at something that you're not good at. Do not lie to yourself. Point number two, weaknesses. Where are your areas for improvement? And where are the areas where you're just not that good and honestly shouldn't even be in those areas in the first place? Like, I used to play baseball, realized it wasn't good anymore. I have not picked up a baseball or a baseball bat since, and hopefully I don't need to. When I took calculus in college, I realized once I got that D, I will never take calculus again. Know where you are strong, and also know the areas that you need to completely ignore and never go near. And the areas for improvement are areas that could actually support your strengths. Where are the supporting cast that can actually help you do better at the main thing that you do? If you're a really great artist, but you're terrible at sales, could sales help you do better with your art? Or maybe you can go find somebody who's great at sales, who believes in your work, and they can help you sell your stuff. Know where your areas for improvement are, and also know where your areas for ignoring are. There are two different things. Only fools fashion themselves as competent in everything they see. The wise people know where they should go and where they need to avoid. There's a fish in the water and there's a fish out of water. It's two completely different stories. Point number three, your opportunities. Given your strengths, how, where, and when can you make the most of them? Where do you see uses for your abilities now and in the future? If you look at your strengths like a pile of firewood, what are the sparks that can actually turn that wood into a big fire? Know what that is for you so that you can leverage your strengths. When you know what your strengths are, you should also be able to easily identify the opportunities to make the most of those strengths. Number four, the threats. Your weaknesses can become threats when your opponents know about them. Where do you need to be vigilant? Vigilant. Where would you attack you if you were your enemy? Where are the openings in your facade that could be attacked if someone wanted to come at you? Where are you one bad day, bad break, or bad outcome away from being in serious danger? Like a sports team is heavy on star players. If one of those stars gets hurt, your whole team goes from great to mediocre immediately, like overnight. If one of your businesses is based on a Facebook group or an Instagram account, what happens if that group or account gets shut down? You got chaos. So where are your threats, and what can you do to best fortify them before they become gaping holes that can be used against you? All of this being said, if you want to work with someone who can help you identify your SWOTs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and actually do something with them and do something about them so that you can maximize your potential, make the most of your opportunity here in this business that we call life, or your actual business that you're running, then you may be a great candidate for my 3rd-day mastermind. It is the only place that I offer direct one-on-one coaching. If you want to get on a call with me and talk about where you're at, where you want to go, and how I could possibly be the bridge between the two, then I welcome you to go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Click the button that says join the mastermind. You'll fill out a quick form. We'll send you a link to schedule a Zoom call with me, and we'll go from there. Send me a text and tell me the best insight you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.